Adrian Goldberg with you here on BBC WM 95.6 and ascending the Saturday soapbox this morning. We've got Julie and Brian Hambleton. They've come into the studio to see the soapbox for themselves. They're talking about their sister Maxine, who was killed in the Birmingham Pub Bombings 37 years ago. The people responsible are not in jail. No one has ever been brought to justice for the killing of Maxine, and the other 160 people in total who were seriously injured, and the 21 who died. Of course, 6 men were imprisoned for the Birmingham pub bombings, but later it was deemed that their convictions were unsafe. So that leaves a lot of loose ends, a lot of question marks, and I know from chatting to you both, Julie and Brian, before, that you believe that one of the reasons that the killers haven't been brought to justice is because there is a political agenda at the highest level of government preventing their killers being brought to justice.
Yes, without a doubt. The politicians seem to be running scared. They're burying their heads in the sand, and they are forgetting about their own people. You know, what does that say about our politicians today? They're happy for them to be murdered mercilessly, and for the perpetrators to continue to walk free day after day for decades. If this was to happen today, imagine if it was to happen to somebody famous, or to a politician's son or daughter, or brother or sister. There would be no stone left unturned. How can we profess to live in a democratic society where, as I said to you the other day, Adrian, we are supposed to have a judiciary that is the envy of the world, whereas if the world really knew just how poor our judiciary has acted on behalf of the 21 poor innocent victims who were killed all those years ago, have never had justice brought for them, I think people would see this country in a completely different light. It's absolutely diabolical to think that no one, absolutely no one, is fighting for these people's lives that were taken away so cruelly.
And at least now that the ball has started rolling, there are newspapers writing about it. You've mentioned the bloggers, Justice4the21, the 4 as a number, the 21 as a number. You got a quote there I think you wanted to read, Brian, didn't you, from one of the local papers, from the Mercury, wasn't it?
Yes, it was from George. It was from George.
Oh, the column George Tyndale, yeah, in the Mercury, yeah.
Quoted the lack of a successful prosecution remains arguably the gravest injustice in our nation's criminal history, which just sums up everything to do with our case. I mean, unfortunately, he was part of the Tony Blair deal with the devil, as I would say, to forge his legacy in history, which has obviously backfired. And
you're referring to the Good Friday Agreement, yeah?
Yes.
Yes. And I think if David Cameron, our Prime Minister, had a conscience, he would do something for us and help us open an inquiry to put an end to this. He could get the names of these animals from Tony Blair, who I know knows them, but he doesn't want to rock his history.
Well, you think he knows them, don't you?
Well,
and I mean, the Good Friday Agreement, of course, was brokered to try and bring peace in Northern Ireland. I know you're very keen to not politicise your struggle for justice. You don't really care about the politics of it. You just want justice.
Absolutely,
for your sister.
Absolutely. The politics. Well, if anything, it's the politics that is holding us, which is holding us back. Well, holding everybody else in the hierarchy of government back from finding and gaining justice for the 21 who were killed. If it wasn't for the justice, the politics of it all, I'm sure they. If this was a mass murder by somebody with a gun, they would have found them years and years ago. But because of the politics behind the terrorist attack, that is our biggest crux. It is our biggest barrier. We've been fighting this for years. I have letters I've written to Chris Sims, who has never, ever had the decency to respond himself.
He's the Chief Constable of the West Midlands now.
And yes, and he gets one of his lower peons to respond on his behalf. The only person who has been helping us is our MP, Mr. Khalid Mahmood, who I hold in high esteem, I have to say. And people such as yourself, Giles Latcham from the BBC Midlands Today, had us on the news to help promote our e-petition. The Birmingham Mail have been fantastic supporters, and we can't thank them and their readers enough. But we are begging people, please believe us, this is not a natural platform for us. We are private people. We don't want to have our faces out in the public. I can promise you we don't. But we are begging you, please help us get justice. We lost our sister, she was 18. She had her whole life ahead of her, and we loved her. We still love her. We miss her. And we will always miss her. Please help us. Please help us. If you go into Justice4the21, put it into any search engine, directly on that on their blog spot, or even on a tweet, there are connections to the petition. We have to say that there has been a fantastic reignition of community in Birmingham with this e-petition that proves the point that we are Brummies born and bred. We have Brummies born and bred in Justice4the21 who are helping us. And also, I'd like to add our deepest and most sincere thanks to Brian Travers from UB40 for responding to a tweet from Justice4the21 stating his support. We wish him the best of luck with his new album, but we would, if he can help us in any other way, we would welcome it with open arms.
Okay, let's speak to Pete in Albury. Hello, Pete.
Hello.
Hello, mate. You want to comment on this, I think, yeah?
Yeah. When the Birmingham 6 was released on a technicality, everybody says they're not guilty, but at the time the police made a statement and says they're not looking for anybody else. They've never ever been pardoned, so technically they're still guilty until they've been pardoned.
That's a very interesting point, Pete, in Albury. I don't think a radio programme is the right place to establish the guilt or innocence of any individual. I understand exactly what you're saying, Pete. We have to accept that the verdict of the courts is that the convictions by which the Birmingham 6 were found guilty has deemed to be unsafe. You call it a technicality. Well, it was sufficient of a technicality for those 6 men to be freed from prison. So we cannot assume that they are guilty. We must assume that they are not guilty. That is the verdict.
They've never been pardoned.
They've never been pardoned, Pete, but we have to assume, because the British legal system does not have them behind bars, that they are guilty. Now, this is a quest for justice. Everybody in this, Pete, has to have justice. I hear exactly what you're saying. John is in Wolverhampton. Hello, John.
Hello there. I was in the unfortunate situation of being a serving fireman who attended the bombings, the Rotunda. And the one thing that has stuck in my throat for the last, God knows how many years, from that November the 21st, is the fact that they found people guilty for it, and then they released them under whatever reason, whatever the technicalities you say, and then the police stated that there'd be no further inquiries into this incident, virtually saying that, yeah, we think we know, but we can't prove it, and we've had to let them go.
Yeah, well, in fairness, John, we have to say that the convictions were overturned on more than a technicality. The convictions were declared to be unsafe and unsatisfactory, and they were quashed by the Court of Appeal. So those convictions do not stand. The 6 men were later awarded compensation as well. So we cannot make any assumption other than that, in law, the Birmingham 6 are not guilty. Legally, we have to leave it there. Interesting, though, Julie, that the Birmingham 6 were awarded compensation of £840,000. What have you and the other victims of the Birmingham pub bombings received by way of compensation?
In terms of...
You received any cash by way of compensation? Do you get...
No. We must clarify something here. Cash, money, nothing. We want nothing, because money will not bring her back. we want nothing. However, can I just make one final very quick point, is to say thank you to the firemen, to the policemen, to the taxi drivers on that night, because one of you or some of you could have been carrying our sister, and for that we want to thank you with all our hearts, and thank you everybody for listening.
Julie and Brian, thank you so much for coming in. Julie Hamilton and Brian Hamilton, remembering their sister, Maxine Hamilton. If you want to support their e-petition, go to the blog Justice4the21. The 4 is a number, the 21 is a number.